Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Globe and Mail's 2020 CEO of the Year Awards. I'm James Cowan, editor of Report on Business magazine, and I'll be your MC for today's virtual webcast. This has been a unique year, to say the least, as the business community has faced an unprecedented series of obstacles and challenging conditions. The COVID-19 pandemic has fundamentally altered not just how many organizations operate today, but how they will do business from now on. Last year, we relaunched Report on Business magazine with a clear focus on leadership and corporate strategy. And in this uncertain and quickly changing year, we felt that mandate was even more relevant. In keeping with this goal of showcasing innovative and thoughtful leaders, we decided to replace our annual awards gala with 5 interviews with our 5 winning CEOs for 2020. They will be in conversation with our award-winning journalists from the Report on Business section of the Globe and Mail. Our hope is that you'll walk away from today's webcast with ideas for your own business, along with perhaps a bit of inspiration. All of the winners you'll meet today were nominated and ultimately selected by the editors and writers of the Globe and Mail. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank them for their efforts, as well as the rest of our marketing, sales, and events team for their contributions. As an editor, I hate to say cliche things like, it was a team effort, but it was a team effort. Before we introduce you to this year's group of exceptional CEOs, I'd like to take a moment to recognize our sponsors. Our 2020 gold sponsors, who you'll be hearing from later, are CIBC, Facebook, and National Bank. Joining us as our silver sponsors this year are Boyden Executive Search, Bullfrog Power, CEO Global Network, and MLSE. We'd also like to thank Report on Business magazine's academic advisors for their ongoing support, the Haskayne School of Business at the University of Calgary and the Smith School of Business at Queen's University. We'll be getting to our first interview in just a moment, but now I'd like to welcome the Globe and Mail's publishing CEO, Philip Crawley, to say a few words.
Thank you, James. What a difference a year makes. Last December, we had a packed house at the Globe and Mail Events Centre to present these awards. Coronavirus put an end to any such plans this time around, as it did for so many other things. At such a challenging time for everyone, the quality of leadership is even more important. So in the year of COVID, Report on Business magazine decided it needed to recognize this in a different way. We have picked out those leaders who have defied the odds, who have stepped up to counteract the wide impact of the pandemic, who have created hope and opportunity in these dark and dangerous times. So you are seeing a different set of criteria being applied in the selection of our winners. The list provides inspiration and proof that you can make a difference even when lives are being lost and jobs destroyed by the worldwide crisis we have witnessed since March. The Globe and Mail is glad to salute these achievements through our celebration of these individuals and the companies they lead. More than ever before, you all deserve great credit. Some things don't change, even in a pandemic, especially the demand for trustworthy, independent journalism. That's what's been driving up our digital subscription numbers at the Globe and Mail this year to record levels. The stories of your success in these awards will be read by a larger audience than before. At this point, I want to thank all the sponsors of the CEO of the Year program. Your support is much appreciated. Now, I want to hand you back to James Cowan, who will introduce our first speakers.
Thank you, Philip. Now to introduce our first interview with one of our 2020 CEO of the Year award winners, please welcome our gold sponsor, Facebook.
Hi, everyone. I'm Garrett Tiplady, head of Facebook Canada. In my role, I'm fortunate to work with leading brands and much-loved small businesses across the country. 2020 has shown us how quickly the world can change. In just a few months, the pandemic transformed the way we live, work, shop, and connect with each other. We're still working to fully understand the economic impact of COVID-19, but we do know that with fewer people walking into local shops and restaurants, small businesses are among the hardest hit. The success of our small businesses is critical to Canada's long-term economic growth, and corporate Canada has an important role to play in supporting small businesses and their road to recovery. Today, I'm honored to recognize a leader who has long been an advocate for Canadian small businesses. Our team at Facebook is closely aligned with this vision and proudly supported today's winning CEO in his trailblazing initiative, Canada United, which brought people together across Canada and over 70 corporate brands to support their favorite businesses in their local communities. Through this collective effort and national movement, Canada United raised $14 million in relief funds for small businesses. Adding to this effort, RBC boosted the number of minority leaders in executive roles to 30% earlier this summer, and also committed $100 million in support of Black entrepreneurs. The Corporate Citizen of the Year Award is presented to a CEO whose personal leadership exemplifies the idea that businesses can do well by doing good, and is a true corporate citizen with regard to environmental, social, advocacy, and community progress. The winning CEO this year certainly demonstrates these values. At the helm of RBC, he realized early in the pandemic that the business community would need both reassurance as well as fresh ideas to mount full-scale recovery. He has led throughout the financial crisis, offering ideas on how to successfully reopen the economy and avoid further shutdowns. On behalf of Facebook Canada, please join me in congratulating Dave Mackay, President and CEO of RBC, and this year's Corporate Citizen of the Year. He's joined now in conversation with the Globe and Mail's banking reporter, James Bradshaw.
Thank you for that kind introduction, and thanks, Dave, for joining us. I'm really glad to have you here today, and congratulations on being named our Corporate Citizen of the Year. Let's get started. In a crisis like the one we have right now, because of this pandemic, you've been quite outspoken. We're now in a second wave of it. Can you talk a little bit about the responsibility that you feel as the CEO of Canada's largest bank to speak up, to be part of leading a discussion on how Canada should respond, and the role you think the bank has working with government to make sure that happens?
Yes, well, thank you, James, and very much appreciate the opportunity to talk today. Certainly it's a big part of the role of a CEO, particularly of a large bank like RBC, where what's good for Canada, particularly if you take the long-term view, is good for RBC. And therefore, we take a strong interest in policy and how policy can help Canada. And therefore, we use our insight into what's happening in the Canadian economy. We have a real-time view of the Canadian economy, whether it's on the consumer side or the small business side or the corporate side. We do business in 40 countries, so we can bring learnings from outside Canada into Canada, what's going on, and therefore I feel strongly that part of my role is to really provide that insight and help governments at all levels understand the options they have and how things might work better than other options. Certainly that's a big part of it.
And what has it been like to work with your fellow bank CEOs, to work with government officials to try and drive that agenda forward under what has been pretty intense pressure and at a pretty great speed?
Yeah, I certainly see Canada coming together in a crisis that happened in 2008, where the Bank of Canada and various levels of the finance department and the bank CEOs and OSFI all got together. And it was no different this crisis. When the pandemic hit, largely in March, we had regular meetings to talk through various market actions and activities that were going on, what policy might be required at all levels, and I really saw all leaders come together.
And speaking of the alignment between what's good for the bank and what's good for Canada, you've also been quite vocal in support of small businesses, and that's obviously an important part of your customer base, but it's not the biggest part of your business. Tell me a bit more about why you have wanted to speak out so forcefully for small business and what their path to recovery means for the bank and for Canada.
As we all know, small business is the engine of the economy. It's a big job creator for Canada. A lot of the early impact and potentially lasting impact is on small business. RBC is the bank for business in Canada. Roughly 1/3 of Canadian small businesses bank with us. For the reasons for the Canadian economy, for RBC's support of small business in Canada, understanding the impact, advocating for small business is really, really, really important to us. At the same time, I see small business being left behind in this new economy, in this changing economy. The pandemic's accelerated trends that we saw, around digitization of the economy, the digital future. We've seen a movement towards big brands and big platforms where consumers are spending more and more time, and therefore we're very concerned that even pre-pandemic, small businesses were being left behind, and the pandemic has certainly accelerated that. So, part of the advocacy is around the long-term change, and obviously in the short term, we see so many small businesses disproportionately impacted.
And you talked about the window you have into what's going on in the economy and that finger you have on the pulse. What is it you are hearing most often from your small business clients about what they need to ride this out?
Yeah, small businesses are challenged on a number of fronts. As the digital economy accelerates their ability to connect with customers online, they need support. One of the reasons we launched Canada United and bringing, support to small businesses across Main Street in the form of advertising and connecting with consumers across Canada was that huge part of connectivity. But when you look at service industries and restaurants, they need short-term relief. So whether it's the rent relief program is really important to help keep their premises. They need the wage subsidy program and the SEBA program to help offset some of the costs of labor while their revenues and their volumes from customers are way down. So it's a combination of what businesses can do, and they need to, the support in deferring some of their loan payments. So it's a combination of what banks can do, like RBC, what the government can do to bridge, and landlords all have to come together to really provide that bridge to the end of the pandemic, hopefully in 2021.
Let's talk about the approach that underpins all of this from even before the pandemic, because after you took over as CEO, you've changed RBC's approach to corporate citizenship and the way it thinks about sort of balancing the needs of different stakeholders. Can you tell us a bit about the pillars of that approach and why you believe in it?
Yeah, we certainly moved 6 years ago to a balanced scorecard approach where we look at, 4 major stakeholder groups. We look at obviously clients, we look at employees, we look at communities and their needs, and we look at our shareholders, and balancing our approach. When you have a perspective that you've been here for 150 years and you aspire to be here for the next 150 years, you have to take a balanced approach. And certainly we've seen a number of companies around the world start to articulate a balanced approach, but we really moved there 6 years ago, and that provides our North Star and our foundation. It allows us to put the right lens on the decisions that we make around those 4 stakeholder groups. We start with the fundamental premise that what's good for our community is good for RBC in the long term, and therefore we very much focus on community and client first, through to our employees, through to our shareholders.
And one of the things you've also done is you've concentrated quite a bit of RBC's philanthropic spending around one theme, which is RBC Future Launch. And this is a program that is helping potentially millions of young people with skills, with training, with getting ready for the jobs of tomorrow and the future of work. Can you tell us a bit about the genesis of why that was the area where you thought RBC could really make a difference, and what kind of impact you're seeing from that so far?
Well, a couple of reasons. One, my journey towards RBC and my career here has been really started when I took a co-op role at the University of Waterloo. I've seen the impact of work integrated learning. I had no connections, and I saw what a great democratizer of work integrated learning, co-ops, internships are for society and organizations. So I learned from my own journey when as I took senior leadership roles at RBC, I saw the impact young people can have in an organization. I saw how skills were changing. I had a better understanding where the skill gaps were between what schools are training for and what organizations need, and therefore, really for the future of Canada and the future success of RBC, I thought it was really important that we invest in the future of our youth, building networks, understanding the skill sets that they need to build, and giving them practical experience within organizations through work integrated learning. So from my own experience through to my observations leading within the organization and the community, it's the best of both worlds, and it's the future growth agenda for Canada.
And with the disruption the pandemic has caused to the economy and to the workforce, do you see that program having even more relevance? Do you see it having a bigger or a different impact than you'd originally anticipated coming out of this?
Absolutely. As a co-chair of the Business Higher Education Roundtable, which is a group of educational leaders across colleges and universities, along with CEOs in Canada, we've committed to providing internships for 100% of undergrads within the system. And it's because of that reason that we really see it's more difficult to find roles. As we recover from the pandemic, it could be more challenging. So the need to give opportunity to train for the digital skills of the future, technology skills, all those I think can benefit from programs such as work integrated learning, and RBC Future Launch is perfectly placed to help facilitate that transition in our economy.
Well, that's the time we have for today. I really want to thank you for joining us, Dave, and congrats again on being our Corporate Citizen of the Year, and we'll hope to talk to you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you, James.
Thank you to James Bradshaw and Dave Mackay for that great interview, and congratulations again to Dave on being named our Corporate Citizen of the Year. We're now set to recognize our next CEO winner, named Global Visionary of the Year for 2020. This award recognizes a CEO who has successfully expanded his or her organization beyond Canada's borders. Our 2020 winner has certainly achieved that goal. When this CEO took over his company in 1998, the stock traded at $5 per share and had one mine in Quebec. Now the company has 7 mines on 5 continents, and the stock recently hit an all-time high, north of $100. Earlier in the year, the company faced its biggest crisis, with all but one of its mines ordered to close because of the COVID-19 restrictions. This CEO worked closely with regulators to convince them that they could operate safely. The mines reopened, and they have been operating almost flawlessly through the pandemic. I'm pleased to recognize Sean Boyd, Vice Chairman and CEO of Agnico Eagle Mines Limited, as the 2020 Global Visionary of the Year. Please welcome Sean in conversation with Globe and Mail's mining reporter, Niall McGee.
Well, thank you very much for that introduction. And Sean, firstly, congratulations on the award. I mean, I think you're a very unique executive in Canada. I mean, if not the longest serving executive, one of the longest, and your tenure with Agnico goes back to the 80s. And I think you really did transform this company. And maybe if you can just talk about how the company was, back in the 80s and how you helped transform it to what it is today, the second biggest gold miner in Canada.
Well, thank you, Niall. And even back then, it was a fascinating place to work at. I had a lot of experience even prior to joining Agnico Eagle because I was working on their audit. So I got to know the individuals extremely well. And what was apparent from day one is it was a people company. It had a great culture. It was not that sophisticated. The board had the insurance agent, the dentist, the sister on the board. So it was a company that had certainly a lot of potential, great skills, but it was small and set to grow. But one of the things that it did have as well is that it was trading on the U.S. market. So there was still some level of sophistication when you look at its attraction for the U.S. capital markets. So a lot of fun in the early days.
That's right. And then, of course, this company was run by Paul Penna for decades until he died. And back then it was one mine in one country and really a small company. So then you take over in 98. And I mean, if you can talk a little bit about what you've done differently, because the company is very different now. You're in a number of countries and you have something like 8 mines, and you're much, much bigger than the company was back then.
Well, the company had several things going for it. It had a fabulous skill set. It had a good asset at LaRonde, but a complex asset. But that asset forced the team to develop some unique skills, deep mining, multi-metal. And when you took those skills with the culture, with the single asset, we felt confident that we could grow. We felt confident that we could add assets in Canada, but also look outside of Canada and look for regions that had geological potential. So essentially what we did from a strategy perspective is we looked for those parts of the world that had great geology that we felt comfortable we could build a long-term business. And we basically took geological bets. We went in early. We used our exploration teams and our mine building teams to go in and make an assessment. And then it was on them, once we acquired those assets, to turn them into meaningful parts of our business. So in that way, we weren't making big bets. We were making measured bets, but we were making bets that on the geology. And as it turned out, most of those bets were big winners. Those deposits grew dramatically, and we were able to, as we said, use our mine building skills, our in-house mine building skills, to turn them into long life, strong cash flow generators, which built that per share value.
I mean, as well, Agnico is known for a very sound technical department. It's engineering, building mines, and sort of getting it right for the most part, although there have been a few stumbles. Can you talk a bit about that engineering department and that sort of emphasis on the technical and some of the stumbles in the past and how you've overcome them, I guess, because of your technical prowess?
Well, it was that experience, that technical depth, and that in-house mine building skills that really formed the basis for our strategy. So we took our lead as executives, as allocators of capital. We took our lead from our technical teams. And when things do go wrong, because they do go wrong, in this business you're dealing with nature, we had that built-in resiliency. So we were able to bounce back from those setbacks. And that's been a hallmark and a tradition of this company, and it's one of the key strengths which has allowed us to generate those consistent, steady returns over time.
And I mean, as well, when it comes to sort of being measured and disciplined, as you mentioned, you've mostly bought early stage projects, built the mines yourselves. The acquisition of Malartic in 2014 was multi-billion, but that was really kind of stands out. So why did Agnico consciously decide it was mostly going to just build its own mines and not make big acquisitions in the gold mining industry, as many of your competitors did?
Well, it was that grounding in per share value, and I think that's where this industry got a bit off track with these large M&A deals, caused massive dilution. We were focused on, as we said, making smaller bets, which means issuing a smaller amount of shares. And what that did is allowed us to grow these individual assets, and that value creation went in orders of magnitude to the shareholders. So that was an effective strategy because it was well matched to our skills. So we never got caught up in this idea that bigger was better. We never got caught up in empire building. We were really focused on just trying to build a high quality, low risk business.
I mean, and in terms of where competitors have stumbled, I would say M&A is for sure one of the big areas. Goldcorp, Barrick, Kinross, they all have their black marks, and their stocks are all lower, or some of them don't even exist anymore as a result, partly because of bad deals. I mean, one other thing that Agnico did, and maybe you can talk about this, unlike Barrick, Barrick hedged its gold exposure for a lot of its existence. Agnico's never hedged its exposure. Why have you never hedged? And how does that influence how the company trades and how the company operates?
I think that's a great example of sticking to an effective strategy that worked. Our job, as we understood it as we worked and built this company, was not to financially engineer, but to try to find gold as cheaply as we could, and then build those mines based on that geology. And others were looking at trying to protect the downside. We were able to do that because we had low costs. And our job then was to provide that leverage to gold. And as it turned out, as we moved along, we were the only company of any consequence that never ever sold an ounce of gold forward. We always gave that leverage to our shareholders.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been effective, and Barrick, of course, paid billions to unwind its hedges in the late 2000s. And then, if we switch to present day, it wasn't so long ago that this company was almost in a crisis because of COVID. 7 of your 8 gold mines were down, worse than really any of your competitors. Yet you sort of got to work and fixed the problem. I wouldn't say fixed it, but solved a lot of the issues quite fast. Can you just talk about that COVID experience and sort of where you stand right now?
Well, again, coming back to the resiliency. So we've got a good handle of our assets. We've got exceptional people. They reacted quickly and boldly. And one of the things that we did early on was employee testing so that we could manage, keep our employees safe, keep their families comfortable. But as you said, governments made decisions to shut down industry. It affected mining. But we were able to make a strong case that we could keep our employees safe and that we could get back to work and make big contributions in those communities. And that's what's happening even today. A great example is Nunavut. Unfortunately, they're having issues. They got through the first wave without a case of COVID-19. They've had cases recently, and that's created an opportunity for us to give back to the community in a much bigger way. Today, we're currently supplying food baskets to 1,000 families. And I think that points to the strength of the mining industry. We often operate in parts of the world where there's not much around. There's not a lot of logistical capacity. In the case of Nunavut, we have the logistical capacity to bring up and supply PPE, to supply food to the families in need. They're under lockdown in Nunavut. So we just have looked at this as an opportunity, and we said when this started, given our experience of working together and given the trust we've built up with our communities and our employees, that we'll get to the other side of this. But as we work our way through, look at this as more of an opportunity to demonstrate that we're great partners with those communities we operate in.
Well, Sean, very interesting discussion. Thank you so much, and congratulations again on the award.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Thanks to Sean and Niall for that great discussion, and congratulations again to Sean for being named our Global Visionary of the Year. Next up, we are pleased to introduce you to our 2020 Innovator of the Year. This award recognizes a CEO who has created and commercialized a truly disruptive product or service, or who has pioneered a groundbreaking way of doing business. This year's winner has created one of the most forward-thinking businesses in Canada. Founded in 2007 as an exporter of pulses and other crops, the Saskatchewan-based company has steadily expanded into food production. The company's CEO has been savvy in recognizing the growing popularity of both gluten-free foods and protein replacements. This year, they launched a new pasta product made from peas. The company has also forged a partnership with another Saskatchewan-based business to develop new forms of textured vegetable protein. I'm pleased to recognize this year's Innovator of the Year, Murad El-Khatib, President and CEO of AGT Food and Ingredients. Please welcome Murad in conversation with Report on Business Magazine's Assistant Editor, Don Kalea.
Thanks so much for that introduction, Murad. It's great to be here with you, and congratulations.
Thank you.
So let's just jump right in. I'd like to talk to you about some of the biggest challenges you've faced over the past year.
Well, certainly the COVID-19 pandemic, gave us a lot of challenges. I mean, we're a global, company that's, exporting to over 100 countries. So, steamship lines, railways, even just sending bank documents, by courier, got difficult during the pandemic. So, the demand for food was so strong that, it created a bit of a logistical challenge for the industry because we had to make sure that grocery store shelves were stocked. And, we were actually producing exactly what the world demanded, pasta, pulses, lentils, peas, chickpeas in cans. I mean, these are shelf-stable, high-protein, affordable products. So, that was certainly a challenge. And then, of course, just managing our staff, keeping everybody safe. We were essential service, so we didn't actually miss a day in our factories, and we were able to continue to operate. it was definitely a challenging time, but one of great opportunity for us as well.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I think that, we had taken initiatives over the years prior to get closer to the customer. And what that did for us was take us towards the retailers in the world. And, so our business, while we had a food service business, we also had this strong retailer connection. And, that was, kind of a huge opportunity in that, grocery store shelves around the world were empty. And so from that perspective, demand boomed. And I think that, what it's done for our products, in general is it's increased the consumption. And, I think that that's a lasting effect that we're going to continue to see.
So there have been, there's been a major shift toward plant-based protein. Can you just talk to me a little bit about some of the forces driving that?
I think that, there's a number of factors. It's, kind of driven a bit by what I would call the new consumer, a consumer that is, very aware of the environment. They care about water. The consumers of today want food labels that, are kind of more synonymous with mom's pantry. The things you find there, you want to see on your food label. If you don't see it in your mom's cupboard, you don't want to eat it. And so, our natural products, plant-based proteins are viewed as sustainable, and they're very efficient on water. And, from that perspective, that's been part of it. But health and nutrition is really driving it. Lower fat, lower cholesterol, high micronutrients, natural products. I think that there's really no downside to that, which has been one of the fundamental trends that's driving plant-based protein.
Well, there's also a lot of talk about, the environmental impact of meat consumption. We've got a rapidly rising population. How does that play into this?
Yeah, there's no denying that, this is not a vegan or a vegetarian trend. This is what I would call the growth of a flexitarian trend, a trend of consumers that are going to continue to consume meat. But as the populations and as incomes rise around the world, we're going to need to produce in the next 40 years the same amount of food that we produced in the last 10,000 years of civilization. So that kind of gives you the quantum and magnitude of what the food challenge is ahead of us. And, it's all about land and water, and those are the two scarcest resources in the world. So, water efficiency per unit of protein and protein digestibility and protein availability are going to be, very key topics as we go forward. And plant-based proteins have to be part of that solution. We actually don't have enough water to continue with only meat protein. So it's not an either or, it's an and scenario. And I think that bodes very well for Canada because we have land and water. And we have the ability with a 3-crop rotation in Western Canada to produce cereal grains, canola, and lentils, peas, chickpeas, and beans. And that will feed the world protein as we continue to grow.
Now, you're not just selling pulses as they are. You're a value-added company. So I'd like to talk to you about some of the innovations you've made on that side of things.
Well, when I founded the company, the basement of my house and started, the vision was to build a supply chain and build acres in Canada and then scale around the world. So we've got 46 manufacturing facilities in 5 continents now. And part of that was that the food industry we were supplying, just pulses, started to say to us, look, we want the characteristics of pulses, but we need only certain components. And pulses are lentils, peas, chickpeas, are protein, starch, and fiber. So we really started to innovate around how do we extract naturally the protein fraction, the starch fraction, and the fiber fraction, and how do we start to provide those to food companies? For instance, babies need the protein, right? They want the micronutrients, but they can't digest the fiber. So in order to be a successful supplier to baby food, we supply protein fractions, into the baby food markets around the world. So, that's a very good example showing, that when you're looking at biofortification and, presenting products in a way that consumers are going to get the characteristic they demand, it might be fiber they're looking for. So we add pea fiber or lentil fiber into bakery goods, and we dramatically boost the fiber and lower the glycemic index of that product. That's what it's all about, is giving the nutritional characteristic that they want, but all natural. So all of the ingredients that AGT produces, we use nothing but air and water and heat and cooling, and we don't try and add anything else to the way that we separate these products. It's been a very successful innovation strategy for us.
Right. Now, you've partnered up with some fairly major companies, and you also went private a couple of years ago. How do those two things sort of meet up?
You know, I mean, we were a public company, and it was an amazing opportunity for me to scale from a, you know, as I said, when I took the company public in 2007, I was 40 million in revenue, and now we're close to $2 billion in revenue. So the ability to scale was great as a public company. The innovation platform, though, in partnership with major consumer products companies around the world, it's great to be private because we've got a lot of very proprietary, very confidential, you know, development projects going on, and the public markets have a disclosure requirement that, you know, really puts some handcuffs sometimes on innovation and even the desire of those global companies to be your partner because they don't want people to know what they're doing. So that's been, you know, great for us to be able to take it behind a veil and really deliver, you know, some great innovation that's resulting in products on the shelf.
Can you walk us through a couple of those products that you've had a hand in creating?
Well, you know, it would be, listen, if you look at the current plant-based protein and the you know, plant-based food products, you know, whether it be, you know, Sun-Chip veggie chips with Frito-Lay, or it be, you know, Ripple non-dairy milk in Targets across the United States, you know, those are products that are made from yellow peas, you know, as an example, or, you know, children's pasta and the President's Choice brand that was pea protein and oat fiber fortified, you know, shapes of pasta that were pasta that kids want to eat and moms want to buy. You know, those are the kind of products that have been launching, you know, and of course the whole meat and meat analog space. Texturized pulse protein is the main ingredient in things like Beyond Meat burgers, Maple Leaf Light Life burgers, you know, Nestle ground and sausages. These are all the products that are coming from our innovation pipeline.
Now, you know, as you alluded to earlier, you started this company from nothing on your own. What do you have to say to, you know, the entrepreneurs out there who are working here in Canada and hoping to build a global brand?
Well, you know, I was a 28-year-old kid, and you know, I had a vision that I could build this agricultural company. And you know, the first thing I did was find good partners. So I found partners in Turkey that had capital, technology, and some markets, and convinced them to invest, you know, along with myself. And you know, that's been really important to me along the way, is finding the global partnerships that I need. You know, my most recent one with Fairfax Financial with Prem Watsa, you know, is a way to scale this company from 2 billion to 5 billion. So, you know, get to know your market, get your partners where you're weak. You know, those are really important things. You know, the other side, I think, for entrepreneurs is, you know, I want entrepreneurs to know that we can do it in Canada. We scaled a global multinational, you know, from a small city in the prairies. And I think that I hope is inspiration to others, that not only can we scale Canadian companies to be global champions, but we can do it here with technology and innovation. The new economy is different. It's accessible compared to how it was even when I started 20 years ago. And I think that, you know, embracing technology is going to be an important part. Agriculture of the future will not be what it is today. It's not the family farm. It's artificial intelligence. It's drones. It's traceability. It's food safety. And it's innovation in plant protein. That's a pretty exciting sector to be in.
Well, that's a nice, hopeful note to end on. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to be here, and congratulations again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Don and Murad, for the excellent interview. And congratulations once again to Murad, our 2020 Innovator of the Year. Our fourth CEO interview today is with our 2020 new CEO of the Year. And here to introduce this individual, in conversation with the Globe, is our gold sponsor, National Bank.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dan Nolan, Vice Chairman and Managing Director, Equity Capital Markets, Corporate Investment Banking with National Bank. I'm pleased to have the opportunity to recognize the 2020 Report on Business magazine New CEO of the Year. We at National Bank like to demonstrate our firm commitment to supporting the entrepreneurial spirit and furthering knowledge in the world of business, two factors that are essential to social and economic development. National Bank is a client-focused full-service bank and investment dealer that focuses on helping our clients grow and innovate both in Canada and wherever their business takes them around the world. Perhaps we in Canada don't celebrate our business leaders enough, but innovative leaders who create and drive thriving businesses are critical for families, for communities, and to ensure that Canada is the very best, most innovative, and most welcoming place to do business and create jobs in the world. Having spent many years meeting business leaders in all sorts of industries, it's especially rewarding to meet, work with, and learn about leaders who are truly exceptional and visionary. The new CEO of the Year award recognizes a CEO with less than 3 years of tenure in his or her current role who has made a significant impact on their company. This CEO certainly fits the bill. She leads Absolute Software, a cybersecurity company headquartered in Vancouver with a large presence in California. She became CEO of Absolute Software in 2018 and grew revenue, profit, and customers. The stock is up more than 80% this year, and analysts are bullish, mainly because the shift towards remote work and learning has created new opportunities for the company. But this CEO's success involves more than simply being in the right place at the right time. Recognizing there are dozens of security companies in the market, she sought to differentiate her company by emphasizing its ability to fill gaps in security measures, and she also expanded the company to support new industries, including healthcare and financial services. On behalf of National Bank, I'm delighted to recognize Christy Wyatt, President and CEO of Absolute Software, as the 2020 new CEO of the Year in conversation with the Globe and Mail's senior business writer and columnist, Rita Tritcher.
Thank you for that introduction, and congratulations again, Christy. Let's get right to it. You became CEO about 2 years ago. What did you set out to accomplish at that time?
So when I first met Absolute a number of years ago, what struck me was just the amazing opportunity. So you had this little tiny piece of technology embedded in 500 million devices on the planet, pretty much every device manufactured for the last, PC and laptop, for the last 15-ish years. And what we had the ability to do with that going forward was really make these devices stronger and more resilient. And so just given a lot of the things I had been through in previous roles and companies I'd been involved with, there was this belief that devices were protected and that they were safe because we were spending billions of dollars on cybersecurity. But we had no way of making sure those things work. And the first time I saw Absolute, I thought, this is the technology that can make sure they work. This is the technology that can actually close that last gap and make devices heal themselves. When I looked at the business, there was just so much opportunity. I think that the company was doing fine, but really driving focus into the things that were going to matter. What was the customer asking us to do, and what was the thing that we could do that nobody else could do? And that was really our goal, was to get very close to the customer and understand how we could help. And that's always been our focus.
And you were CEO for less than 18 months when COVID-19 hit. Can you please describe what impact this crisis has had on the company?
It's been quite a journey. We had been talking since it's almost 2 years now. So at the time the pandemic hit, we had been talking about endpoint resilience and the need for these devices to be stronger, more manageable, less of a burden on IT. And we've been having a lot of success with that message and talking to our customers about how we can help. But when the pandemic hit, it really changed everything. I think for us as an organization, we were largely a remote and hybrid organization to start with. I'd say hybrid more than remote. So it was relatively simple for us to shift to focus on the customers, get past our own internal logistics and really just sit down and focus on what the customers needed. And it was changing minute by minute. We really went from 0 to 1 million miles an hour overnight, and hour by hour, the story was changing about how many people had to stay home and did they have devices and could they get devices? There was supply shortages. And once those devices got home, were they protected? Did they have security on them? For us, it was a big, I think, spotlight on how we could help. It was a big spotlight on why this was a critical capability. But for us as a business and as a team, we really just were focused outward. That was, I think, internally, even from a morale perspective, it's really what gelled us together. We picked up the phone and called every customer we could think of and said, what do you need? What are you going through right now? How many people? We heard from some customers that they were sending home. One CIO said to us, we sent home 30 to 50,000 PCs last week, which meant it was plus or minus 20,000 that he didn't know that were where they were, what data they had on them. I mean, it was a little bit of mayhem. So for us, it was an opportunity not just to show our value, but really sort of rally around our customer base and show how we could help. And I think in doing that, it brought us one step closer to that customer and demonstrating how we could be a critical part of what they needed to get done.
As you've just noted, COVID-19 has radically changed the way that we live, the way we work, the way we learn, the way we do business. What does the future of work look like from your perspective, and what role does Absolute Software play in that future?
I think we have a front row seat to how the future of work and learning. 30% of our business is actually on schools and education. And I think what we're seeing is a lot of previous assumptions, things we knew to be true, just get thrown out. So there was this view that if your device was connected to a campus, or if it was always going to be connected to a campus or an office, that you could protect it by the way you watched it. And so that's fundamentally changed. I don't think people assume that every device or every job needs to be in the building. I think many companies like ours have proven that there's very few jobs that need to be physically in the office. Not a lot of organizations have found, well, maybe not every job, many jobs they previously thought had to be fixed could be more mobile. And that just opens up a world of opportunity for organizations to rethink real estate, rethink the employee experience. How do employees want to live? Where do they want to live? How do they want to work? And so things that we always knew could be possible and things that we always thought could be potentially in our future just became opportunities in the very near time. From our perspective, what that means is this automated intelligence on the endpoint to help those devices stay protected and secure no matter where they are and how they're being used becomes even more important. So we're really just at the start of this journey, but it's very exciting. I think it's very empowering for most organizations to sit down and think, do we need all those buildings? Does every engineer need to be sitting next to one another? I think we've challenged a lot of those assumptions and they're not all true.
COVID-19 has obviously caused a very serious health and economic crisis. You've had a lot of negative news over the last little while. What gives you optimism during this very difficult time?
I think a very common theme for us is resilience, and I don't mean it in our product perspective, but I just mean that we have seen companies, we've seen customers, we've seen our own communities really rally to what we previously thought were unthinkable events. I think in our day-to-day world, we thought, would we ever have contemplated that everybody had to go home on a moment's notice and stay there? From a business perspective, did our IT organizations ever think that with 24 hours notice, they'd have to get a screen in every hand and get them home? But what sort of profoundly moved me was just how people came together to solve those problems. We saw vendors and customers and partners really sort of come together. We were calling our partners and saying, look, I get that you don't have enough devices, so what else can we do? We saw devices reactivate that we hadn't seen in 6-12 months because people were pulling out old things and giving them to folks who had nothing and saying, just use this and let's kind of get through it. And not everybody clearly agrees on, what's really going on or why it's going on or what we need to do about it. And yet we were able to move the ball forward, right? And internally, we've been having conversations about unity, not uniformity. And so people can work together to solve problems. They can sort of come together and move the ball forward. We don't all have to be the same. We don't all have to agree. And that's been powerful within the company and I think more broadly.
I was really fascinated by your backstory, your entry into tech. I'm wondering what advice you would give other women who are aspiring to C-suite roles or, roles as company directors.
I think when I was coming up in my career, I was often the only one, right? I was oftentimes the only female engineer in the room or the only manager or executive or leader in the room or in the boardroom. And I think growing up, that was always something I sort of shied away from. You were, as I was coming through, you were always trying to kind of work around it or work. And I think the thing I've come to realize is that you need to embrace it. Back to the unity versus uniformity, I think that diversity is really a superpower. It's not it's not a liability. And I think that when I'm looking at building teams, or when I'm looking in the boardroom to work with those teams, the things that make us different are the things that are giving us different perspective. And so I may not be in the room as a first-time board director in one of my first roles. I probably wasn't in the room for having decades of financial experience or many of the reasons why some of the others were in the room, but I was in the room because I had a different perspective. I had a different voice. There was something else that they were looking for. And I think that when you embrace that, and I have 2 daughters, so this is an active conversation, right? You have to kind of embrace the thing that makes you different. It's what gives you something that nobody else has. And you can bring that to the table and contribute that, and that's a powerful thing.
I love that. Embrace the thing that makes you different. Christy, congratulations again, and thank you so much for your time and your insights.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rita and Christy. We're delighted that Christy could join the webcast as our new CEO of the Year for 2020. Congratulations once again. Our final CEO interview to be featured today is with our 2020 Strategist of the Year. And here to provide an introduction to this conversation is our gold sponsor, CIBC.
Hello, everyone. I'm Victor Dodig, President and CEO of CIBC, and I'm pleased to have the opportunity to recognize the 2020 Report on Business Magazine Strategist of the Year. At CIBC, our purpose is to make our clients' ambitions a reality, and we firmly believe that Canada's entrepreneurs are at the heart of our economy and our communities. I'm proud to be here today recognizing a CEO who is a leader in this regard. The Strategist of the Year award honors a CEO whose bold and authentic decisions have materially changed and improved the strategic position of their business overall. This year's winner certainly exemplifies bold moves and timely strategy. In 2002, he completed the purchase of Canada 3000 Airlines, the catalyst for building Cargojet, a thriving company in the air freight industry in Canada. This industry has seen significant growth in package delivery in recent years, and Cargojet has grown to support this market, with its stock increasing nearly 700% in the past 5 years. The CEO is skilled at forming effective long-term relationships with many companies, including Canada Post, Purolator, and Amazon. To the credit of his efforts and those of his team, Cargojet is the dominant player in Canada's overnight air cargo market. On behalf of CIBC, I'm thrilled to recognize Dr. Ajay K. Vermani, President and CEO of Cargojet, as the 2020 Strategist of the Year. He'll be in conversation with Susan Krasinski-Robertson, retail reporter for the Globe and Mail. Over to you.
Thank you so much for that introduction. And AJ, thank you so much for joining us. One of the things that seems to characterize your career is an appetite for risk, from breaking out on your own to start Commercial Transport International, to buying Canada 3000's cargo business out of bankruptcy after 9/11, even charging expenses to your Amex at the time. How do you navigate those ups and downs and know when it's worth taking a big risk?
There is really no set time to take a risk. It comes automatically. You might have a dream, and if you pursue that dream, take a risk, I think most likely you will get rewarded. However, if you don't win and don't get rewarded, you'll at least be wiser, and you'll understand next time what to risk and what not to risk. I left India in 1975. I was 17 years old, and was that a risk? I didn't even know what risk was. I just packed the bags and going to a new country, couldn't speak the language, didn't have any money, didn't have any job. But I think that was a risk I took, but I didn't understand what risk taking was at that time. And I think maybe I was born with it. So it's one of those things that you can't really quantify or say, this is when I'm going to take the risk. I think entrepreneurs take risks, and they see these risks as opportunities. Whereas people who don't take those risks, I guess they will never be sort of in the entrepreneurial categories. And I think that personally, when people go after the hottest trends, when people go after, this is what everybody's doing, it's like following the crowd type of thing, then that doesn't work. You have to have that dream, which is kind of unique. You have to be passionate about it. You have to be stubborn about it. You have to take calculated risks and go for it. But most importantly, you look at the challenge and you say, okay, I can turn this into an opportunity. And that's part of my dream. But what you need to do is slightly listen to your heart, not always your head, because head will tell you a science, but risk is just not always about head. You have to go with your heart at times. So that's my theory on risk.
The COVID-19 pandemic has reshaped a number of industries, including yours. E-commerce and the boom in e-commerce has meant a lot of opportunities for shipping and logistics companies, but also a lot of challenges. How has this affected Cargojet?
So Cargojet has been a fortunate winner out of this COVID-19 crisis. If I had a choice, I would want my life back and everybody's life back, but it's one of those things that ended up being on the right side of the nature this time. When Canada 3000 went bankrupt in 2000, when I had just invested in it, we were on the wrong side of. So sometimes, luck follows hard work, and luck follows the risk, like we talked about. So, I hate to see a lot of restaurants, small businesses, passenger airlines, personal services, hospitality industries, and we should all do our part to help these people out in this need. And Cargojet is certainly doing some of that. But at Cargojet, our biggest challenge is being to keep the supply chain moving. And for that, our biggest asset, our people. So we want to keep our people healthy. We want to keep our people motivated. We want to keep our people safe. So that's been our biggest challenge, is to ensure that, without any government assistance, whether it's testing, whether it's aid or any extra expenses, we have not increased our expenses to the customers, not asked for any grants. We have managed all of our own because we are doing well. But our biggest challenge has been to make sure that our people stay healthy. We have hired some great people that have been looking for jobs. We've added 300 jobs in the past 4 months. And I think with all the steps we have taken, for safety and making sure that the workforce is there on time, motivated, and ready to go, has been our biggest challenge.
Absolutely. We've heard from across the industry that this pandemic has accelerated the growth of e-commerce, a trend in shopping habits, changes in shopping habits that were already happening, but that have now been fast forwarded by months or even years. Where do you think e-commerce is headed in the long term?
See, e-commerce has now become one of those hottest trends, right? And do we follow it or we don't follow it? But I think it's a change which has really changed this whole world. People are now sitting at home ordering stuff. They don't have to go outside. They don't have to expose themselves. So that is a need right now. It's a necessity. But does it continue on for the long term? That's what we need to see. But right now, like for example, pre-pandemic, Canada, if you look at all the sales, 7% of our total sales was e-commerce before. Now it's going up to 14%. So it's about 5 years ahead than it would have been. So the demand for e-commerce today in US, for example, that was 15% of sales pre-pandemic is now 25 to 30%. Europe is even 40%. So we are, as in Canada, we still lag behind US, UK, and also Europe and Asia. So there's a lot of potential to grow that business, that sector. The second part of it is when things open up, vaccine comes, yes, people will rush to shop in stores because they're sick and tired of sitting at home. But I think in the long run, the habits that have been formed and the convenience people have experienced by shopping at home for goods that they don't need to go from store to store is here to stay. And, you know, I see this as disruption as the biggest disruption since Henry Ford introduced the T model car and put all the horse and buggies out of business. So that's the kind of trend we are seeing. And I think this is, most of it's here to stick and stay.
You know, COVID-19 has also impacted the air travel industry enormously. I know that at times of upheaval, you're often looking at opportunities. What kinds of opportunities are you looking at right now? Is it time to start buying planes again?
You know, air travel, it's sad what's happening. People don't travel, there's no restaurants, there's no events, there's no hotels, the hospitality's dead. The whole economy pretty well relies on air travel. But the interesting part of air travel, what's also dead, is movement of goods. So 70% of world's cargo traveled in the belly of the passenger planes that you would fly from Toronto to, let's say, Hong Kong. You would know that all the passengers are on the top and the belly is full of cargo. So 70% of the world trade in air cargo traveled in the belly of the passengers' planes. So that part is gone. So that's created an opportunity now for cargo carriers. And as you've seen, some of the passenger carriers have taken the seats out and met the demand for cargo that way. So the cargo planes are in high demand. You know, we were fortunate that about a year ago, I was sitting in a meeting and, you know, no pun intended, but a strategy meeting. And we decided to roll the dice and we said we should get 2 new planes next year for growth. Now, it was a big decision. It was an $80 million decision. And we made it in 5 minutes because we saw the trends of the e-commerce. And thank God we had those planes and we were able to do 200 to 300 flights to China for PPE and other essential goods that we're moving 25 million pounds of cargo a week within Canada, outside Canada, with US, Canada, and we're keeping that supply chain going. So right now, if I had 10 more planes, they would still be working. So yes, there is a shortage of planes. We are looking for more planes to buy, but we just don't want to buy any planes. Planes that strategically fit our fleet to make sure that we have the synergies, we have the optimization of the fleet, the routes. And yes, we would continue to invest in new planes, looking at the demand and looking at the e-commerce story these days.
Absolutely. You know, getting packages delivered on time is really your bread and butter. And as you mentioned earlier in the conversation, you rely on your workers to keep up that on-time performance. With the unbelievable surge in demand, how have you managed the demands on your employees to maintain productivity, but also their well-being?
Look, you know, productivity and operating safely and getting into the pandemic mode. It's not a switch you can flip and say, guys, we're in a pandemic mode. Let's be safe, let's be productive, and let's continue what we're doing and do it better under the worst of circumstances. I think Cargojet always had a culture of safety and employee relations, employee health. And, you know, we always practiced happy worker is a productive worker. I think we had the culture to adapt to that change. So, you know, Cargojet was founded on 5 principles that were employee oriented: respect, you know, fairness, diversity, equality, and teamwork. So we followed those principles from the day we started the business 20 years ago. What we did in pandemic was enhance that. We went and bought PPE at whatever price we could get. There was no compromise. We allowed every employee to take PPE, sanitizers, wipes, gloves, anything they wanted to their home and to their families, for their cars, for their friends. It was a free flow, and it is, and it was never abused. We started a hero pay of $75 per employee per day back in March, which continued on with in August, and in August we gave them a big pandemic bonus. We started recently an on-site testing with a private company that comes in 4 hours a day. Anybody wants to get tested. If people couldn't go home, we supplied them hotels, to make sure that their families are safe. So, the work culture we had developed before was kind of almost, you can say, pandemic ready. We just had to switch a little bit things to make it safer. And I think the companies that enjoy or treat people well, who are compassionate, who care about their employees, didn't have to do much in pandemic because the culture already existed for change, for shift, and to get better during the pandemic. So our on-time performance actually in the past 6 months has exceeded 98.5 to 99%, and we have not missed a day. We haven't had touch with any big outbreaks, and we have always, engaged people, professional doctors to talk to our employees. So I think we have done all possible to keep our employees safe and happy and productive.
You've been in this business a long time. Is this the busiest 9 months you've ever had?
Oh, yes. I would say that working out of the home, that I never thought I would be as busy, because I hardly see, I used to see my family more when I was working out of the office, right? Working out of the house, I don't see them at all, because now it's become a 24/7 job. We are always flying. We're moving 25 million pounds of cargo a week. We're doing about 500 flight legs every week. Everything is doubled. Operational challenges, making sure that people are safe, secure, and safety is very important in aviation business, so we can't compromise that. So it's been a real challenge, but our customers are happy, and we have never missed a beat. And I think if customer used to ship 1 million pounds and they're giving us 3 million pounds, we have not said no, we have made it happen. And I think the credit goes to my CargoJet team of 1,200 people who have worked day and night without a day off to make this happen.
Well, you're a busy man. Thank you so much for sharing some of your time with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you again to Susan and AJ for joining us, and congratulations to AJ once again on being named our 2020 Strategist of the Year. We've now reached the final segment of our program this afternoon. I think our viewers will agree that the CEOs who have been recognized today have demonstrated a clear vision, acute business instincts, and the courage to take risks. They have outpaced competitors, changed the course of their companies, and positioned their enterprises for continued prosperity and growth. We are immensely proud to be able to recognize their excellence in corporate leadership. We do have one remaining award winner to recognize today. It's my honor to be able to reveal our 2020 overall CEO of the Year award winner. As we've noted throughout the webcast, the COVID-19 pandemic has placed an unprecedented level of stress and anxiety on business owners throughout the country this year. From fluctuating lockdown restrictions to supply chain issues to the uncertainty as to whether things will ever get back to normal, 2020 has been a year like no other. And for a year like no other, we felt it was appropriate to have a winner like no other. For more than 15 years, our editors and writers have selected one remarkable CEO to celebrate for their accomplishments. And when selecting a CEO of the Year, we want to not only acknowledge an individual's achievements, but offer a reflection of the year as a whole. And this year, we decided it wasn't one individual who exemplified 2020, but many. That's why this year, our overall CEO of the Year award winners are the 4.1 million small business owners across Canada who have continued to respond to the pandemic with an incredible level of resilience and adaptation. They truly represent the excellence and strength of the Canadian business community. Standing in as our representative for small business owners across the country, on our cover was Julie Yu, owner of I Miss You Vintage in Toronto. You can read more about Julie and the many other small businesses inspiring us in 2020 and Report on Business magazine's latest issue, which is available now. Profiles of all 5 of our finalists are also available on our website. Before we sign off today, I'd like to once again thank our sponsors for the 2020 CEO of the Year Awards program, as well as the Globe and Mail's editorial, sales, marketing, and events staff members for making this year's event a success, even in the midst of a pandemic. We look forward to seeing which business leaders inspire us in 2021, and we'll see you again at the next CEO of the Year Awards. Goodbye for now.